welcome to AARP on Tap. I'm Jennifer Firestein, Associate State Director for AARP Michigan. Beer has been a part of American life since the first settlers arrived at Plymouth Rock. So it's only fitting that our topic for tonight's AARP on Tap is cooking with beer and pairing with beer for Thanksgiving. This is being recorded so you can watch it again to capture recipes and tips and share it with others. We'll share those recipes and tasting guides throughout. The benefit of watching live is you get to ask your questions and have them answered by the Cicero. We're also going to have a little fun with trivia, and we're posting the first set of questions for you to answer in the comment section. So the first 4 questions that we have are, why did the Pilgrims land at Plymouth Rock? How much beer did they drink? Why was pumpkin beer so popular back then? And what is cock ale? We'll share the answers throughout, so be sure to put your answers in the comments section and see how trivia savvy you are. For those of you who've joined AARP on Tap in the past, Tracy Prefer is no stranger to you. She's our guru when it comes to all things beer. Tracy, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Jen. I'm Tracy. I am a craft brewer and distiller here at Beer Distillery. I graduated from GRC's School of Craft Beer program and have been in the industry ever since. A certified craft beer server and working on my Cicerone right now.
How much longer do you have, Tracy?
Maybe about a year. It's pretty hard studies, but it's well worth it.
Well, you already are such an expert in this field, so I can't imagine how much more you still are going to learn.
It's a pretty in-depth process, but it's a great opportunity to try out different styles of beer, delve more into their history, and just to enjoy it.
Okay. So last month we were on and we were talking about boozeless beverages. And Tracy, you had a question that you were going to ask me for tonight's episode. So yeah, yes. the revelation.
So I was wondering how your Sober October went for both you and anybody in the audience who joined in the last virtual stream, if they enjoyed that, if you've tried out some new non-alcoholic craft cocktails or non-alcoholic beers, or what was your experience for that?
So I actually started it, gosh, I think in July. It was July, and I kind of am still doing it. You know, I went completely boozeless for the month of October because I was doing Sober October. Plus, I was also doing it because of inflammation issues that I have. And I have to say that reducing the amount of alcohol has worked tremendously to make me just feel better with the inflammation. So now I'm to a point where it's like, you know, I'm so used to not having a beverage that I kind of don't miss it. And I just feel like, you know, I feel better. So it's going to be a special occasion event only. And, you know, as I was doing some background reading for tonight's episode, and I was reading about, you know, all of the rage with pumpkin beers, you know, it's pumpkin spice latte season. So, of course, it's pumpkin spice beer season as well. And I went to the grocery store to find a pumpkin beer, and they didn't have any. They were out. So I think I was a little too late to the game in getting a pumpkin beer. So anyway, so I settled for cranberry wine, and I shouldn't even say settled because it's absolutely fabulous. So that's what I'm drinking tonight. And I'll have a little bit on Thanksgiving. But again, just you know, the minimization of it just makes me feel so much better. And I think that comes with age too, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you're feeling better. So there's 1 or 2 breweries I think that are still going to be, you know, prepping for Thanksgiving though. So they will be coming out with some things that are going to be very similar, like a cranberry-based beer, maybe even 1 or 2 pumpkin spice beers, just up probably up until Thanksgiving. But
okay.
You can also find a nice non-alcoholic beer too. That will work for a lot of the recipes though I have for tonight as well. So don't have to worry about that. If you want to continue Sober October through the month of November, totally fine.
So I feel like, you know, I really don't do a lot of gluten. I'm not doing alcohol really. So do they even make a gluten-free, alcohol-free pumpkin spice beer? It seems like it's like a needle in a haystack.
That one I think might be a little bit more difficult to track down. I do know that a completely gluten-free brewery did just open up here though in Grand Rapids called Nike's. So I'm looking forward to trying them out.
All right. So to get started, Tracy, we've got a lot to cover. You've got a lot of amazing recipes and tips to share. The first thing is just, talking about the versatility of cooking with beer, and then we'll talk about pairing it for our Thanksgiving meal.
So, like you're saying, beer is very versatile. Sometimes you kind of might have gotten stuck in the mindset, it's a holiday dinner. You have to have your fancy red wine for this course. You have to have a white wine for this course, a dessert wine for the dessert. But for beer, I mean, you can pick up almost any style of beer, pair it with almost any dish if you like. If you want to do something very complimentary to flatter or it totally contrasts the flavor of a dish. That's what I love about beer. And we did have a beer pairing simplified sheet that I sent out. So if you want to take a look at that, it just gives, a really basic rundown. This is, the style of beer. This is what is most commonly paired with. But the great thing about beer is it's so unique and individualized that you can switch this up however you like. If you want a really dark flavored stout and you want to pair it with something, very spicy, if you want to pair it with chicken, go for it. There's no hard and fast set rules for a beer pairing. It's very much up to the individual and their taste.
I love this chart.
The starting point.
I love it, the simplification of it. So I'm curious then. So like the turkey, that's the staple of a Thanksgiving meal. What would you pair then just simply with the turkey?
So the turkey is a nice thing too, because I mean, if you have a smoked turkey, I'm probably going to go usually with like an Irish red ale. However, if I'm having like a turkey sandwich or something lighter with leftovers, I might just go with a basic blonde or a pale ale. Or, you always see the beer can turkey that people do. And sad to say, most people are using a, Bud or Miller Lite or something with that. But all up to the individual. I actually have a recipe for a beer brine turkey. I'll be talking about a little bit more in depth, so that will cover on that. But again, it's totally up to the individual's taste palette.
And is there just like a generic type of beer that works with everything?
I would almost want to say some of like the lighter beers. So like right at the top there, second down, the blonde ale. I use that a lot in cooking, whether I'm going to like, deep fry fish or using it in a batter or, a dessert pie crust, things like that. I do think I use blonde a lot more for the cooking part. But I do like to like experiment with some of like the crazier out there beers. Like I have a Mexican hot chocolate stout that I'm going to be using like in a chili, or I found a bourbon barrel aged pecan that I have here that I'm going to be using in a dessert. So
fantastic.
So again, like the holidays get really hectic and crazy and everybody's trying to rush around. If you just grab a beer off the counter at the party store and just go, I'm going to try this. It'll probably work out really well. So again, there's no hard and set fast rules for this.
So is it actually healthy to cook with beer?
So yeah, I mean, you're going to get a lot of the flavoring out of the beer for, aesthetic reasons. The smell, you'll still get aroma and everything, but you'll also get the health benefits of the beer too. So, I mean, I have a beer bread recipe that my cousin makes every holiday season, and it tastes fantastic and it's good. It's very filling. You don't need a lot of it, and I think it's healthier than just having a regular dinner roll. So,
and you get a lot of flavor from it without the fat and the cholesterol then too.
Very much so, yes.
Now, when we talk about cooking with the beers, though, for Thanksgiving, every generation is at the table, right? So you've got older adults and you've got kids. Can the kids eat the food with the beer in it? What happens to it? Is there alcohol content? Is it safe for kids to eat food with beer?
So a lot of the recipes you'll sometimes find today will say, like a beer chili and everything. It's depending on how you're cooking it. So like when I get set, beer chili is awesome in our family. It's easy to make. You throw it in the crock pot. You can leave it overnight. It travels well. Game day, whatever, it's there. A major staple. And yeah, the kids definitely eat it. So what happens is that a lot of the alcohol is going to be cooked off because we usually do it for a longer period of time, up to like 4 to 6 hours in a crock pot. And you retain all the flavor and aroma, but the alcohol is cooked off. Again, we don't use a very high ABV beer to begin with. We're kind of something more in like the 5 to 6% range for the ABV, just because it's not going to be, super high in-depth beer. We don't want to overwhelm the flavor of the chili. So a lot of it will have cooked off.
Okay.
There are, however, though, some recipes you got to be careful when they're like, okay, you're going to use only a half a cup of the beer, but it's going to basically be a mainstay in it, which is one of the things I've done is I have a beer infused whipped cream that I use for decorating cookies, pies, cakes, everything during the holiday. And this is definitely going to have the alcohol still in it. So it's for when the kids have gone to bed dessert.
Are you going to be talking about that recipe? Because I'm very intrigued on how you make whipped cream with beer.
Yes.
Yep.
So, dessert portion of the evening. It's going to be good. So yeah, like everyone else right now is kind of scrambling. You're just going, oh man, the holidays are coming up. We have to get all the family together, cook for a lot of people, or, you have some recipes that you've had traditional wise for generations and you don't want to kind of stray from those, but yet you still want to impress. So a lot of the recipes I have tonight are things that I've found that we've had at our table a lot of times. So I'm hoping people will enjoy them.
Nice. And you have another chart too that you want to share.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the craft beer and food pairing guide as well. So maybe a little bit more in depth too, just to give you examples of what the interactions are with the flavoring. So whether it's going to complement the flavor, if it's going to add a little bit more of a richness to it, or definitely, contrast wise, you have a very hoppy, spiced beer compared to your very, very subtle like soup or something or salad. So this kind of gives a little bit more in depth and makes a couple more examples of the dishes.
Okay. So the questions that I had asked, the trivia questions, let's bounce back to those so that we can fill our guests in on what the answers were. So the first question that I had asked was, why did the Pilgrims land at Plymouth Rock? And Tracy, you'd be proud of me because I did some homework on this, right? I was trying to channel my inner Cicerone as I was doing some background history on this because, gosh, earlier in the year, we were talking about the history of women in beer and craft making. And it was fascinating. So I thought, okay, how did beer come to America? And it's all because of the Pilgrims. So, and this is true, which I found fascinating. So basically, as the Pilgrims were traveling, across the pond, it was a 2-month voyage, and they had to have beer to stay hydrated. They couldn't drink the water because the water was brackish and it was contaminated, and so that was their way of drinking to stay hydrated. Which, of course, you laugh at now because alcohol is a dehydrant rather than a hydrant. And so anyway, so the captain needed to get his crew back to England because they were running out of beer on the boat. And so he needed to just stop somewhere. And so he just happened to drop the Pilgrims off at Plymouth Rock. So I thought that was fascinating. It was very random. They were off course a little bit. And he was like, I got to get these people out of here so that I have enough beer for my crew to return back to England. So yeah, so that was the place where the Pilgrims landed, and I thought it was a very funny story. So they had to hydrate, and they had to ration the amount of drinks that they had. So Tracy, how much do you think that they had to ration per person for the voyage? Do you have any guesses?
I couldn't give you an exact number, but I know it's going to be a lot because, like you were saying, you don't want to drink the water back in those days just because it was contaminated. It hadn't gone through the process of being pasteurized or fermented or anything. So beer was a mainstay staple. You drink it, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So a lot per person.
Yeah. So they said that it was, they rationed 1 gallon per person per day. So that's a lot of beer.
It's a lot of beer, but I mean, if it's a table beer, which is most commonly served, it's going to be around 2 to 3%. So it's very watered down beer.
Okay. Not like some of the ABVs that we have today.
No, definitely not.
And then I was talking about pumpkin beer earlier. And the trivia question is, why was pumpkin beer so popular? And they said that it was because pumpkins were, they were resilient, they were plentiful, and they didn't have the ingredients like barley or some of the other staples that we have today for making beer. But they actually used the guts of the pumpkin to make the beer. So it sounds awful. I don't think it's quite like how we make pumpkin beer today. But yeah, so that's why. And then there's a little bit of mystery shrouded in the kinds of beer that they had. They can trace back pumpkin beer. They also can trace back spruce beer. And I thought this was fascinating. So they used pine needles and pine cones from spruce trees to make beer. Were you aware of that, Tracy?
Yes, there's actually a couple beers right now that are out there that are made either with, the pine needles or the juniper, just kind of a call back again to the history of beer. And I've tried 1 or 2 of them, and they're actually fairly good.
Okay. So yeah, I thought, oh my gosh, there's nothing that would tempt me to want to try a pine needle spruce beer. But what was interesting is the phrase "spruce it up." It actually came from the beer making process, because if there wasn't enough spruce flavoring in it, then they would say "spruce it up." So that's where the history of that little catchphrase came from. So thought that was interesting. And then the last question that I asked is, what is cock ale? And it sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Do you have a guess, Tracy, as to what cock ale is?
So that was kind of a running joke in our beer class of what's the weirdest beer ingredient that you could think of. And someone had replied with that. And yeah, a whole chicken.
Yeah, roosters and chickens. Yeah, again, can't even imagine what that tasted like. Apparently, they did spruce it up with a little bit of spices and fruit, but still sounds quite awful.
That's the one beer I haven't tried and is way, way, way far down on the bucket list to try.
Are there even any cock ales that are made in today's day and age?
Not that I'm aware of. But maybe if you go to like a historical reenactment or two, maybe they might have one.
Yeah. It was apparently all the rage in the 17th and 18th century. And, as we were talking about the history of the Pilgrims were running out of beer. That's why they landed at Plymouth Rock. We never see that interpretation in school plays, right? When kids do the elementary plays of landing at Plymouth Rock, we never quite see that interpretation of it, even though that's the fact and that's the reality of why they landed.
So I would pay more attention in history class if I heard that. So
yeah, right. So the next questions that we're going to pose, I've got 3 more questions, and we'll answer these toward the end. So, what alcohol is drunk most on Thanksgiving? And then, what is the biggest drinking holiday? And then, what time is the most popular for Thanksgiving dinner? So, our viewers can put their answers, their guesses in the comment section, and then we'll answer them a little bit later on. So anyways, so Tracy, getting back to the pairings, the recipes.
Yeah. So again, November for me is one of the busiest months of the season, especially in the craft brewing industry. You see a lot more people getting out and about. They're picking up gifts for the holidays, things like that. More family meetups. So being able to go, oh man, I have to cook a turkey and side dishes and everything all on this one day, it's very, very stressful.
Mhm.
The added bonus is I am also a turkey baby. I was born on Thanksgiving, so you also have to make
Oh,
turkey
I
cake.
did not know that.
So my birthday always has a pumpkin pie and birthday cake.
Nice.
But
Of course, it
so
doesn't. So what's the actual date then? Because of course, your birthday doesn't then fall on Thanksgiving every year because it changes. But so what's the actual
yes,
date?
not every year, but this year it's going to be on Thanksgiving. So I get
Aw,
to have a little more oversight into what we're all having. So I get to cook up some of the
aw.
favorite.
Well, happy birthday, happy Thanksgiving.
So the one I like to start off with, because again, crazy, hectic, busy day, Thanksgiving. Everybody gets up early. People want to watch the game that's on. They're trying to get ready for Thanksgiving dinner, and you got to keep everybody fed in the morning. So there's been a lot of like snacks and appetizers that have been really popular in our family. And the one recipe that I have to start off was the jalapeno and bacon beer cheese dip. In our family, though, not everybody can agree on the jalapeno part, so we mostly start off with just the beer base. So I have that recipe, and it calls for the bacon in it and everything. Everything really loves that part. Mozzarella, and the beer in it is a pale ale. I've experimented with a couple different versions of this. So I've done the pale ale, I've done a blonde beer in it, and I think one year I even threw in a brown ale. So again, if you just grab a beer off the shelf, just take a sip of it, see what you think, and see what you think if it'd be really good in something like a beer cheese dip or maybe another dish.
And is there a hard science to it, or is it just kind of like, throw some ingredients together, throw some bacon, jalapenos, cheese, add a little beer, and just experiment with it?
I like to do experimenting with it, but there's also these. Beer cheese is really, really popular, especially growing up to Michigan. You find it almost everything. There's a beer cheese fondue that you can find in most local grocery marts. So I had a couple different versions I saw on the shelf when I was going shopping earlier today. So if you don't have the time to make your own, you can always buy one and then maybe throw a little bit of your own beer into it for the mixture. So
And again, what
um,
what would be your recommendation for the beer?
I'd stick with the pale ale just because it's not as overwhelming, and I like to pick up more of the flavor from the actual cheese itself. We've experimented with a couple different types of cheese too. So yeah, stick within that like blonde and pale ale region. And the other types of appetizers we like are like the roasted garlic IPA hummus. And then we also do like a guacamole too or something. But the garlic hummus is great because of the IPA. I like to pick a very high bitterness for the IBUs, which is the International Bittering Units. So the higher the IBUs, the more bitter it's going to be. So it complements really well with the roasted garlic flavor to the hot bitterness. Kind of evens it out, but it also highlights the flavor too a
Okay.
lot.
Okay.
And again, game day, everybody's in the living room watching it. Beer chili. Again, like to throw it in the crock pot, have it going either overnight or start it early in the morning. Pick whatever flavor of meat you like, veggies. We usually do at least 3 different types of beans. And then almost every year we fight over what kind of beer is going to go into it. And whoever gets there first gets to pick it. So I like to do like a brown ale. It's very complimentary to the meat in it, and to also I like to do like roasted veggies in it.
Well, since it's your birthday on Thanksgiving, I think you should automatically make the decision. They all have to acquiesce to you.
Aw, thank you. I'll let them know. Sometimes
Okay.
though, I still gets up in the morning to make it, but I'll try to have the beer sitting right there on the counter for them. It's like this
Yeah.
goes in first.
Yeah.
And then going along with that, some of the main courses that we really like in our family. Again, my cousin makes a beer bread every year. They pick out the beer. Again, blondes are great, versatile beers for cooking. So a lot of the times it's been a blonde beer. But the recipe that we also have calls for a wheat beer. So I have here at the distillery, we have our Strawberry Fields, which is an American wheat beer with 1 pound of strawberries to gallon of beer. So this gives it a little bit more flavor, and the bread kind of makes it a little bit fruitier, a little sweeter. So it's great to have. Otherwise, you can go along with just like we have more of like a pale ale. I have a lighter wheat beer. So if you pick out something you really like to enjoy just drinking by itself, I always say that, hey, I wouldn't mind having it be included in a meal and eating it. So,
How does the beer enhance the bread? Is it fluffier? Is it tastier? What how does it help as opposed to not using the beer in the bread?
so the beer in the early days was known as liquid bread because it was composed of the ingredients of you had your water, you had your malt, and at the time they didn't know it, but like you had your wild yeast in it. So the ingredients that go into bread. Um, Usually it's not a very well hopped beer that's going into it because you don't want the bitterness in the bread. But you can play around with it. Like if you have a rye beer, you have all of that rye flavoring. You can experiment again, like the Strawberry Fields makes it a little bit sweeter. If you pick even like a brown nuttier ale to give it a little bit more increase on that maltiness, or something that's very caramelized, like in a porter or a stout that has like maybe coffee or chocolate. You can definitely change the beer bread around. We usually have about 2 or 3 different recipes to try out at the time. So, yeah.
Okay.
I like it because the wheat beer itself, I think, makes it a little bit fluffier, less dense, and it's definitely better tasting, in my opinion, than just a plain dinner roll. So.
Mm-hmm.
So we start off with the beer bread, and then another family favorite for us is the stewed apples, basically because again, you can throw it in the crock pot and leave it overnight. So you don't have to get up super early to make it. So our favorites are like a very tough, crisp apple, mostly a Granny Smith. Throw it in with a little cinnamon and let it sit overnight. But what I found and have experimented with is I added a little bit of our cider to it that we have here. And we have both a dry and semi-sweet. So that affects the flavoring too of the apples. The semi-sweet, I mean, it turned out it was like basically a great dessert apple, is basically apple pie without the crust. And then the dry cider actually enhanced the flavor of the Granny Smith apples. It was even more of that tart crispiness to it.
So how do you get these recipes? Is it just experimenting, or do you have a resource that you go to?
So the book that I first got to experiment with is actually the Craft Beer Cookbook, which is a lot of the recipes that I sent to you that have come from. And then it's just years of experimenting with it. This one is by Jacqueline Dodd, a great author, lots of great recipes in it. Otherwise, just finding recipes online or word of mouth through friends is like, hey, I had this really great soup the other day. What do you think? And I was like, it needs more beer. It needs more beer in it. So yeah, lots of experimentation and online recipes too.
Yeah. And when you're cooking with beer, what is the shelf life? Does the food last a little longer? Can you prepare it ahead of time and ease some of the stress of Thanksgiving Day and the preparations? What's the longevity of when you're cooking with beer? Is it better or worse?
So I found it might be a little bit longer, nothing too extreme, maybe an extra day or two shelf life. Especially the things that use more of a like hopped beer and IPA, because that the hops and the beer preserve the beer itself. And I've seen that kind of transition over to the food as well. Again, just maybe by a day or two. But again, like the chili with beer, they can leave that in the crock pot and for a couple extra days too. So
Okay.
100%. And a lot easier because I mean, if you're cooking with it, you don't have to worry about, oh no, the various levels of using it, whether it calls for a half a cup or a whole entire bottle of beer. We've seemed to be doing pretty well in most of our recipes when we either like halved it just because we wanted to try it out at a lower level of the flavor, or we accidentally spilled in more than we should have doing it freehand.
Mm-hmm. All right. So other recipes that you have, because I know you got a lot.
I got a lot. I hope to get through them all. So dinner in our family wouldn't be complete with a sweet potato casserole, with all the marshmallows on top and stuck under the broiler. And everybody fights for the marshmallows too. But I found this beer on the shelf one day, and it is from Epic Brewing, and it was their Big Bad Baptist pecan. And I was like, that just sounds great. It sounds amazing. It's a very big bottle though. So I was like, I don't want to drink it all in one sitting, and I don't want it to go to waste when I open it. So, I will drink some of it, and then I will use the rest in the kitchen.
Yeah, that
So
is a big bottle. That's like the size of a wine bottle.
yes. So this one was it's 1 pint. It was pretty big, but there was a lot in it. So, and it is a very high ABV beer. So I threw a little in with the sweet potatoes. The only issue I had was the amount of liquid in them. But as time went on, a lot of it did seem to kind of boil off, and this actually caramelized a little bit. So it's more like a caramelized glaze to it. And they picked up the flavor of not only the bourbon barrel, but the pecans themselves. And the dish was amazing. So yeah, if you can find a barrel aged beer, since it's definitely more of a seasonal thing right now, getting into the winter months, a lot more places are releasing them. Those are going to be great for like a lot of desserts or some of the sweeter things. So sweet potato casseroles, things like that, just kind of to enhance the flavor. And if you luck out, I think they actually have a couple that have been barrel aged. Again, with pecans, or there's some that have like a maple syrup to them. So if you want to enhance another dish with that maple syrup flavor, you can do that as well.
It sounds absolutely delicious.
Definitely a really good one. So we also do, the green beans, cranberries. There are several beers out there that are hopefully going to be released soon that have like that cranberry flavor to them. We've done a couple in the past too with the craisins, but we do a fall bistro salad, which is great. It's going to be, start with your just like regular lettuce or romaine, sliced up apples. Again, we like to do something a little tartar, so a Granny Smith or two. Throw some craisins on there, and then the walnuts. So you can do like a caramelized walnut or a caramelized pecan. Again, you can do that in like a beer glaze if you like, or if you are not a huge fan of beer, but you still want to pick up a little flavor, something like a bourbon glaze too. And then the vinaigrette that we do with it is going to be based on our maple rumble sauce that we have. So it's going to be a little darker in color and everything. It looks great. It tastes great. And it picks up the flavor from the maple rumble itself. So it's going to have a little bit of sweetness to it, but it also goes really nice with the vinaigrette part in it. So it's very well balanced. So that kind of gets you started and through the first couple courses. And then, everybody's looking for that main meal part, whether you do a turkey or a ham, or if you want to even do like a salmon or something, that's going to be the centerpiece of most of the main Thanksgiving dinners, right? So want something that really impresses. So again, turkey, depending if you want to do a beer brine turkey, that's a little bit more labor intensive. I got the recipe for it. It takes up to 3 days. And then you also have to measure it out based on the how much your turkey weighs versus how much beer goes into it. Or some years we ended up doing just like a ham, but we do it with a barbecue sauce, a maple stout barbecue sauce, or a IPA mustard vinaigrette to it, just to give it a little additional flavor. So again, like on the beer pairing there, you can kind of pick and choose what your main dish is going to be, and then a beer that would complement it really nicely for a beer pairing. Whether you're actually just cooking it into the dish or if you just are drinking it by itself.
So what's the benefit of the beer brine and cooking the turkey in beer?
It gives it a nice crispness, in my opinion, to it. Because, you know, sometimes your turkey dries out no matter how much you're trying to baste it and putting all the juice and sauce on it and everything, just to keep it from drying out. So the beer soaks in really well. And then at the final stages of it, when you go to put it under the broiler, it crisps up super nice.
So noticeably moister and crispier.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So, and with the ham that we've done in the past, it just kind of locks in all the flavoring. Usually we get like a smoked ham or two, and then the barbecue sauce still has the same amount of smokiness to it, so it just enhances that flavor. Mm-hmm. So, and then I know once the main meal's finished, everybody's, you know, very full. You got to wait, you know, a little bit, but then you're going to go in for your dessert course, right? So I have a couple different desserts that are main to goes. Again, every year we have a pecan pie and cake for my birthday. So there's a couple beers out there. Like you said, pumpkin beer, still very popular. Getting a little harder to find as the season goes on once October's over, but there's still a few out there. I have one actually I had in my cellar from Griffin Claw. This is my Screaming Pumpkin Ale. So an ale brewed with the pumpkin spices. So I've been gonna be saving this for Thanksgiving.
Nice.
Yep.
I was looking online because I was trying to find, because you know there's so many pumpkin beers, right? Like it was a little overwhelming. And I went to the website. It was beeradvocate.com, and they list 200 plus pumpkin beers. Yes. How in the world do you possibly try to figure out what would be the right beer for you? I mean, and then you're limited too, because like I did, I went to the grocery store, they didn't even have any left. So how do you even sort through 200 plus pumpkin beers to find one that will appeal to you?
So actually that was a main quest of mine. We just got done with the Michigan Brewers Guild Detroit Beer Festival. So it was back in October, and of course, almost everyone had a pumpkin style beer, whether it was a stout, or ale, porter. There are so many of them. So I made it my goal to try almost every single one there, and they're just some fantastic beers. Because I know you say, you know, this is a pumpkin beer, they're going to all taste the same. They end up really not tasting all the same just because of either the different style or how the brewers decide to age it. I had a couple that were like aged in a bourbon barrel or aged in a whiskey barrel. Some that were brewed more with the actual pumpkin, and some that were brewed more with like the actual spices. So again, it's going to be up to the individual's flavor, but I've had Griffin Claw before, and I really like them as a brewery, and everything they've had has been great. So I tend to stick to more of the breweries that I've had in the past and try their new options.
Yeah. And I was looking online and looking at the reviews. And it was so interesting because some of the people are like, there's no pumpkin flavor to this. And then other people on a different beer would say, there's so much pumpkin flavor to this, you can't even drink it. So it's like, where's the balance? I had, like I said, I was struggling trying to figure out what would even be the right one. And then I get to the store and it didn't matter anyways.
Yeah. So also one of my friends dropped off just in time for the holidays because we were discussing the Sober October. This is my non-alcoholic s'mores dark brew by Untitled Art. They're based in Wisconsin. And I am very much looking forward to cracking this open on Thanksgiving as well, just because it's great because it's non-alcoholic, so I can drink as much as I want.
It sounds like dessert in a can.
It's going to go really well with dessert. I'm already planning on it. So
I don't know. That might be the dessert.
that could be it. It depends on how full I am.
Right.
But
So speaking of desserts then.
yes. So we like to get together for the holidays and do cookie decorating. You know, just kind of get you more in the festive mood, even though it's not yet Christmas, but it's still the holidays and it's a great family bonding activity. Everybody has their favorite cookie recipe, and then comes the fun part of decorating them. So I've been experimenting with a couple different beer-infused glazes. I have my beer-infused whipped cream, actually, that I was trying out earlier today in a couple different styles and variations. So I think I've hit on this. I'm just going to have to try it out a little bit more. I like to use something that already has kind of a little bit more of a sweetness to it. So I have a Leinenkugel, I have a vanilla porter that I like to put in some of like the darker cookies that I have, a little bit more of the chocolatey cookies. So the vanilla will enhance with the chocolate. Otherwise, I do have a Mexican hot chocolate style beer that I had saved in my cellar from City Built Brewing here in Grand Rapids. I've had this beer before and it's been fantastic. So I'm thinking of either doing a spiced Mexican hot chocolate cookie or even maybe like a brownie or cake with that one.
Sounds delectable. Is there anything that you cook that doesn't have beer, Tracy? Because I'm fascinated by how much you can cook with beer. Like you can put it in everything and anything, it sounds like.
I mean, you can put it in your salad dressing, like the one I have, your soups, things like that. I do a fair amount of cooking with it, not everything, but it is fun to experiment in the kitchen. Especially the last one that I have is for one of my friends who we're still friends despite the fact that they don't like beer. Sometimes it's a sticking point, but they do like spirits. And I was like, well, the best part about working at a brewery and distillery is I can make up whatever they like. So one of my favorites for them for the holidays is we have a stroopwafel ice cream here at the distillery, which is our homemade vanilla ice cream, caramel, and then stroopwafel cookie bits, since we are a Dutch descent to the brewery, so your distillery. Uses our stroopwafel liqueur. So we usually just rim the glass with caramel, gives it a nice little artistic touch, and then into a mixture of both cinnamon and brown sugar for the rim. Very, very sweet dessert drink.
And what is that?
This is our stroopwafel martini. So this is what I usually end up making for my friend for the holidays. Shaker, it is 1 ounce of a heavy whipped cream. And then 2 ounces of our stroopwafel liqueur. Throw it all into the shaker. I already got ice in here. Give it a good strain. So this is normally where I stop with them, but like they said, I've been experimenting with our glazes and our whipped creams. So I usually just add a little bit on the edge, just give a little additional flair. And I got dessert for them.
Oh, nice. You could add that whipped cream to the non-alcoholic s'more beer too. I was thinking what a great drink that would be.
Yeah. The non-alcoholic cold hot chocolate. You gotta have the little whipped cream though. That makes it, right?
Right, exactly.
Marshmallows.
Absolutely. So I want to go back to the trivia questions now and answer the trivia questions before we move on to the next part. So the first question was, what alcohol is drunk most on Thanksgiving? And the answer is wine, actually. So 63% of respondents said wine. So that's why also I have my cranberry wine tonight too, because most people will drink wine. But we're trying to get more people drinking beer, right, Tracy? It's
Yeah.
your mission.
I think it's about even odds at our holidays. You know, I bring a lot of the beer and spirits and everything. The rest of the family brings their wine or non-alcoholic. A couple different juices for the kids. So yeah, there's a fair amount of everything at our holiday parties.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. And then the next question was, what is the biggest drinking holiday? And we did get a response here, and she got it right. So Lily's Seafood Grill and Brewery said the night before Thanksgiving. So that's the biggest bar night of the year. It's also known as Blackout Wednesday or Drinksgiving. So people that go out and drink heavily the night before Thanksgiving, Tracy, one, how do they prevent a hangover, and how do they stay hydrated?
Mm-hmm. So I can definitely tell you that yes, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, busiest bar night of the year. End up brewing here and distilling, and then go out bartend on the same day. It's a lot. And then of course, you know, usually it's either my birthday or the day before my birthday, so we have to go out and celebrate even more, right?
Right.
So I found having an electrolyte supplements and my water and drinking a lot of water in between, and, you know, drink responsibly, pace yourself. I start off with like the very light beers at the beginning of the evening, and then at the very end go for a larger barrel aged stout or something like that to top off the evening.
Yeah. And we know too that like older adults, as their metabolism changes, they don't process the alcohol in their liver as effectively as they once used to. So, as fun as this is, we also try to help people understand, that there are risks as you get older with drinking. So it's important to drink responsibly, make sure that you stay hydrated, and drink moderately. Those are the keys, because your metabolism changes.
Yeah, you can also, challenge your bartender to make them something, very low alcoholic but great tasting. We have a couple of different recipes that we're trying out now for the holidays for like more of the kids, or, if they don't want to drink the alcohol but still have a very festive drink. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then the last question is, what time is the most popular for Thanksgiving dinner? So the time frame, 66% of Americans will eat between 1 and 5 p.m. And then 7% will eat before 1 o'clock. And then 27% will eat after 5 o'clock. So the time frame is kind of right in the middle, and it probably goes right along with watching the football games, and then taking that late afternoon nap after eating all the tryptophan and the heavy food.
You got to space it out because, like you said, I mean, you enjoy your appetizer while watching the game. You still have everything cooking in the kitchen. Got to have enough time to finish the turkey, eat, and then, collapse into a food coma.
Yeah, exactly. And in my family, we're actually doing 2 meals because we have, 2 families that we have to go to. So we're doing a 1 o'clock dinner, and then we're doing a 5 o'clock dinner. So I'll actually be eating Thanksgiving dinner twice in that time frame.
Yay! You enjoy
Right.
double the amount of turkey then, right?
I'm fasting now to get ready for the splurge. So Tracy, what other drinks do you have there that you want to share or talk about?
So I have this is my bright white. So you're going to get more of the seasonal styles coming out right now that are going to be like your traditional Christmas kind of season ale. So they're going to be brewed with like a lot of like the Christmas spices. You're going to get those cinnamon cloves. This one is a Belgian inspired wheat ale. It's very light, refreshing. So that's from Bell's here in Michigan. And then I also have on the little bit heavier side, this is my Zombie Killer cider. And this one was brewed with honey and cherry. So a little bit more of a dessert style type of drink. And I also have my non-alcoholic Hell's style from Two Roots that I ended up giving a lot away to a friend, and they really enjoyed it. And I've been drinking mine too. just for a lighter style beer. But yeah, you don't want to be drunk while trying to cook Thanksgiving dinner. I will definitely tell you that. So kind of,
Right.
wait till the actual, main course and everything in your dessert. So
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm going to have a sip and then pour a sip and then have a sip and pour a sip.
yeah. Um, I also have another barrel aged. This one's from Founders. So this is part of their barrel aged series I had hidden in my cellar. It's Backwoods Bastard, so it's a very interesting name, but a very good beer. And again, that's going to be more of like for the style for my desserts too. But I'm looking forward to a lot more of the Christmas ales coming out as well. There's some really great ones. There's also a cupcake recipe that I was experimenting with, the traditional like wassail kind of style drink,
Okay.
but making that into like a cupcake.
I'm so glad that you pitched the Christmas uh, beers. So talk about that a little bit, because in a
Mhm.
week it's Thanksgiving's over and we're going to be right on to the next holiday. So talk about the Christmas.
I've already seen, and it hurt my heart. There was people that had their Christmas lights up the day after Halloween, which we're just gonna totally skip Thanksgiving, I guess, and go straight for Christmas. But so a lot of the Christmas ales, again, that I like, they're usually going to be a little bit more heavily spiced. So a lot of them are going to have like the cinnamon clove. We have one that will probably be coming out very shortly with orange in it. You know, that tradition that you get an orange in your stocking as a kid. So there's gonna be a couple that are like orange and chocolate or just regular orange spice. In addition to like the mulled wine style beverages, I really enjoy those. So those are gonna be heavily seasoned. Just pour in all the cinnamon sticks. I like those.
When do the Christmas ales start to come out, or have they already?
I haven't seen any yet, other than the ones I had hidden away in my cellar. But you normally, again, like right after Thanksgiving, there's a lot of breweries that like to do like their 24 days of Christmas Advent calendar kind of thing with beer. So you can actually order those online and they come with like little tiny samples of all the different beers for every day. So those are a great gift if you know a beer lover or two that needs one.
And will you be drinking Christmas spruce beer?
If I could track one down, I might be. I gotta like, have all my friends try it too. I don't think they've had it, but I actually liked it. So if I can find it again, I will.
Now, when you are purchasing the beers and you mentioned that you've had them in your cellar, how long can people keep them? So, like, because the pumpkin beers won't be around again for
Mhm.
another year, like pumpkin spice lattes. So, how long can you keep it for a year, or is there a limited shelf life on it?
There are some beers, again, like the IPAs and everything, that have been hopped a lot to preserve them, and especially if you keep them like in an actual, either like a cooler fridge, if you have your own like basically kegerator or anything, if you have your own bar set up and it's perfectly sealed, cool, optimum temperature. I've had some beers I've had for over a year, still taste good when I open it up. If you're just storing it in, maybe downstairs in the basement, but you don't actually have a cool, dry area for it, I recommend maybe 3 months or so.
So, you couldn't necessarily stock up now to save it for next year unless you had the right conditions.
Under the right conditions. There are some that they've been bottle conditioned style beers. So a lot of the fermentation process has either gone on in the bottle or two. And if you leave it under the pressure, you might end up waking up one day with this loud pop because either the cork or the bottle cap has come off and you have beer all over your floor. I might have found that one out the hard way.
It doesn't come from experience, right, Tracy?
It's the best teacher's experience.
That's right.
So yeah, you also want to make sure the beer's not like going to be over pressurized too. So you don't want to like stack anything very heavy on top of like a case of beer or two.
And how do you know if the beer has gone bad? If you've stored it, let's say for 3 or 4 months and you're like, I want to find out. How can you tell?
If it's in a bottle, you basically will be able to like lift the bottom of the bottle, and if you can see through it, if there's a bunch of sediment and everything, it's usually a condition of either the style, everything has fallen out of phase, or if it's like a cider, all the sediment has settled out to the bottom. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, but that it has gotten older, so the taste will change. It might get to the point where it has been aging too long though in the bottle, and all the flavors will basically kind of start to deconstruct, and you'll be left with bad beer.
Okay.
So your best bet is to just kind of take a look at it, make sure either the can is not like crumpled or the lid's not popping up or overpressurized. Make sure the bottles themselves don't look like they have too much pressure in them. And then just crack one open and see.
And taste it. And if it doesn't taste right, then there's your answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, you could try cooking with it, but once it gets to that point, I don't recommend it.
Yeah, because then you also don't want to deal with food poisoning or just ruining the fabulous meal that you're making.
Yeah.
So Tracy, we've just got a few minutes left. So give us a few takeaways, your best pieces of advice for cooking and pairing with beer for Thanksgiving.
My number one piece of advice is, again, if you like the beer that you're drinking, pretty much a guarantee that you'll like it with the food. If you are afraid of trying something new, start off with a very simple recipe like the beer bread. Pick a light wheat-based beer, go with it, and you can always expand from then. Like if you tried out the beer bread and you want to throw like a different glaze on it with beer too, just have fun experimenting with it. Always ask your local brewers, bartenders, hey, do you cook with this beer, or is it good with a certain pairing? There's going to be a few more holiday beer pairings, I believe a lot of breweries are planning coming up, just because, people don't want to cook leading up to Thanksgiving. So they'll want to go out. Ask your bartenders then if, they know of any.
And if people had a question, could they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can reach me through my email, alewifeforlife@gmail.com. ALEWIFE for life, LIFE @gmail.com.
Okay, because I'm sure people have questions or they want to get some good advice, because you are just a plethora of information. Your wealth of knowledge in this area is just tremendous, and we have so appreciated you being our cicerone for the virtual AARP on Tap series that we've done this year. So thank you for just your commitment and dedication, and just sharing all of your knowledge with our viewers, and helping expand the palette of drinking beer. So we appreciate you, and thank you for all that you've done. And to our viewers, if you want to again watch this, it's being recorded. You can come back here on the AARP Michigan Facebook page. If you want to see a list of all of the events that we have going on virtually and in person here in Michigan, you can go to aarp.org/mi, and that will list all of the events that we have coming up. So thank you. And Tracy, to you, have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and of course, a happy birthday.
Thank you, Jen. I hope you have a great holiday too. And again, if you want to stop by the distillery, I'll be here.
All right. Thanks, Tracy.
Hi to Joel. You can say hi to us and Joel. So
would love to.